Okay, it looks like everyone's back. Is that
I think so. That's my view.
everyone's back?
And
Okay,
I should also just perhaps correctly say that we're back recording again as we were for the talk.
okay. Wow. So, I hope you had a good time, a good conversation, and that it's made you think and have a good evening. So, this is really just an opportunity before we have a bit of well, I'll read some Julian, of course, and a bit of quiet time to end the session for you to either ask questions of me or you can give us whatever you were talking about that you'd like to share with the whole group. Then it's really just up to you. Please do. If you find that the number of little faces across the screen a bit intimidating, then just put your question in the chat, and I know that Howard and Leslie are here watching the chat, and then I can try and answer those for you. So, does anyone? I wonder if it might be best if you use the little hand raise. Oh, there we are. Erica. Hello, Erica.
Hi. Um, so the in our group we discussed this a little bit, but I'm really glad to have the opportunity to ask you directly, Canon Emma. The title of the book includes Visions of Salvation with Julian of Norwich. And so I, especially as, religious people and all of that, we throw around the word salvation a lot, and there's these really great, impressive, long theological treatises on salvation. And I'm just wondering, all things considered, what is your working definition or understanding of salvation? What do you mean by salvation, especially related to the book? And I'll confess that I've only read just a bit. I haven't read the entire book yet. That's part of my Lenten practice and progress.
That's a really good question. It's a really good question. Here at the cathedral, we've just completed that whole process of getting a strategy and a vision statement. And I know, um, that everybody seems to be doing this stuff, but um, I'm really, I'm really pleased with our strategy, and we had lots of consultative sort of exercises. We got lots of people, and so we did an exercise from the bottom up, and then we had all these ideas, and we put them sort of together, and we worked it out, and then it was a real great privilege for me to then actually be the person who had to then bring the language to it, bring the poetry. Now, why am I saying all this? Is because our strapline has become life in all its fullness, life in all its fullness. And I think when I've never quite understood what salvation means, but I think the closest I can get to is that sense of that it is life in all its fullness. Is that, that sort of joyous gift to walk lightly through this world, to walk with joy, with freedom, with a sense that, God walks beside me really closely, that perceived barrier that is between myself and God is just not there. The veil has been taken away. And that it's not just as you say, it's not just a theological thing, but it's something that can absolutely be embedded and reflected in my daily life. So those, and of course, those are taken from Jesus's words. I've come to bring life and bring life in all its fullness, of course. So having that biblical, and I think for me with this text and Julian, the way that seems to be lived out by Julian is that she does give through her understanding of what God's love is like and the invitation to know God intimately and deeply is a call into come and know and experience and enjoy life is in all its fullness. I don't know if it's a mystery and everybody has their own kind of, but yeah, I think that's probably what it kind of means for me. Well, I mean, Erica, what does it mean for you?
Nice, very pastoral to ask that. I I am my understanding and imagining of salvation is in progress, to be honest. At the moment, I'm thinking of the relationship between a salve, like medically, for skin especially, and salvation. And so that's kind of my working image at the moment. I really appreciate your input, and I'll continue to sit in my thinking chair about this.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Um, I only have a number of people on my screen. I just have to flick forward to see if anyone else has got their hand up. You might need to actually sort of shout at me.
Mm.
Has anyone else got their hand up? Does anyone else want to ask a question?
I think when the hand goes up, it places the person at the top left-hand corner, so that happens automatically.
Is that right? Oh,
I
I didn't know that.
I think so.
There we go. So has anyone else got any thoughts?
If you push the button to put the hand up.
That I can see a lady's got her hand up. Yes, Father Bruce Julian. Hello. Oh, you're talking next week.
Hi, hi Emma. Nice to see you.
Hello.
Hello, and thank you so much for this evening. I was really struck by your beautiful story that you wrote about in the epilogue in your book about the hazelnut that was in your pocket and the way that you were able to share that experience with others. And in fact, I'm very grateful to you because I used it for my sermon last Sunday and it went down very well. I mean, I just wonder whether you might briefly, for anyone who's not got that far in the book yet, talk about that. But because I think in a way, that sums up so much, I think, about what I felt when I read the book, that the book was trying to say. And I think that to me speaks something about that sense of what salvation might be for that person at that time. There was a real sense that you were able to help them answer something important. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So as I remember it, it might be, of course, slightly different to how I wrote it, but as I remember it, I went to the Julian Shrine, which is always very powerful, and I was there on my own, and I suppose like most pious people, I thought, oh, I'm on my own. It'll be this great kind of spiritual moment, and it was just a sort of a nothing really. I just sat in the chapel in this kind of um, yeah. And anyway, there is a bowl for those of you who've been there, a bowl of hazelnuts and on the side. And of course, those of you who know Julian's work is that she never actually sees a hazelnut. It's a simile. And so it's always sort of annoyed me, the whole actually holding a hazelnut because it's just not it's not quite what she does have. But anyway, so I put that aside for once, and I picked it up. I picked one up, and I tried to use it in prayer. And then when I came back, I put it in my cassock pocket. And of course I have morning and evening prayer here every day, and I wear my cassock every day. And there it was, sort of at the bottom of my pocket, just sort of rolling around there, just there. And sometimes I was present that it was there, and sometimes I wasn't aware. And then I met this lady who had come, and she wanted me to pray with her. And we get that quite a lot, to pray with her. And she was really upset because she had a friend who was dying, and all they wanted was to have this hazelnut from the shrine at Julian, because the words "all shall be well" had meant so much to them as they were facing their end. And I just spontaneously, without thinking, I just reached into my pocket and said, "Well, here you are. Here's a hazelnut for Julian Shrine." And the reaction of this woman really, really deeply moved me, really deeply moved me. And I suddenly kind of thought, oh, I think I see why this little word. I don't understand these words, but these words really mean something. This is, you live, they've spoken to you. They really have held you. The mysteries held you. And of course, she was very grateful. And she said, "Look, I'm going to go to the shrine, and when I do, I'll get you a hazelnut to send back." And I thought, "Phew." And anyway, it must have been weeks later, I got this package through the door, and it's a bit funny and odd. And I opened it up, and there was a hazelnut, and all she'd written was something like, "Thank you." And I just burst into tears because it was so deeply powerful and moving, really, that yeah. It's one of those moments, isn't it, when you have those encounters and you suddenly think, I think God was there, God was speaking, God. Well, actually, you just don't want to put it into words because there's an otherness about it that slips into this reality, and you just sort of see things, understand, know that that all shall be well. And that wasn't a personal experience. That was what somebody had gifted me, I guess. Because I guess often it's through people that good God so powerfully works. And that's not to say that he doesn't work powerfully in our lives, intimately in our lives, but somehow through others' lives, he gets to those parts of us which are probably the bits that we cut off from him. Yeah, so there we are. That's my that's as I remember it tonight. I may have written it slightly differently, but yeah, there we are. I hope that's as you remember it.
It is, yeah. No, you've remembered it very well, just as you'd written it. So, and I just thought it was a really, really beautiful story, and a really sort of powerful and very sort of visceral kind of sense. So, yeah, thank you.
Tony Nanook, I see I've got your physical hand raised. Do speak next. I think you may be on mute at the moment, so you're going to have to take yourself off mute for us to hear you.
Tony, where?
Tony Nanook is looking at ways to unmute herself at the moment. For those of you who may notice differences in Zoom, there's the react little heart at the bottom is where you can raise your Zoom hand. It's a slightly new place than it was before. So Tony and Luke, we still can't hear you, I'm afraid. This is very disappointing. If you want to try and go to the chat area and type in your question, you can do that whilst maybe somebody else gets ahead of you.
Howard, did you have any questions in the chat? I don't.
No, there are no questions in the chat at the moment. None for you anyway. One or two for me.
Good.
Yes, Richard tells us that we get through 6.35 kgs of hazelnuts each
Good
year.
heavens. Really? Well, there we go. There we go. No. It's like no more questions. Well, absolutely fine. We don't have to sit in awkward silence. That's fine. So I think next week, the 14th of March, you've got Father Bruce. Yay. So Father Bruce is he is the convener of the Companions of Julian of Norwich. So he's going to be talking about chapter 4, which is the 11th revelation. So for those of you who want to come to that, able to come to that, then if you can read that, that would be great. But if you're unable to, once again, Howard will be recording it so that if you miss it for some reason, or you want to catch up on what Father Bruce says, then you'll be able to see that later. Oh, hello. Jocelyn. Hi, Jocelyn. Hi.
Somehow I don't see the raise hand in my React. That's kind of weird. But anyway, so my question is, it comes from, and I'm sorry I don't have the book with me in this room, but it's about that all will be well.
Yeah.
The context of that is she asks Jesus, if it weren't for sin, my memory, if memory serves, if it weren't for sin, everything would be fine. Why do we have to deal with the sin? And Jesus says, well, sin is inevitable. For one thing, he's not really answering her question. But I think it was Father Julian's translation. I'm not sure. I'm not sure now which translation I had, but I have it in both Middle English and modern, and I'm not sure if memory serves. Sin was translated as something beyond wasn't just about doing something wrong. So my question to you is, what is sin in Middle English? What did sin mean to Julian?
Well, Julian takes the kind of Augustinian line, which says that sin is no thing. So it's more like an absence of God, I guess. And so that's why she can say God does not see sin, because it's not a thing and it's not an action, it's a no thing, if that makes sense. And the interesting word that it's in that chapter 27 that I mentioned, if there was sin, when she says, if there was sin, then all would be well. And that's when she gets that really interesting statement of sin is behovely. but all shall be well, which gives the idea that sin is, behoviously is a funny word. It's a Middle English word. It doesn't really translate very well, but the sense of it fits. It's it's right in the sense of, it fits in with the whole scheme of sin. It has a purpose. And I guess the way I've heard it described most helpfully is that if you have a Rembrandt painting, well, I say Rembrandt because he uses light and darkness so well, and you see sin as the dark, then you need that dark to have all the shapes of the light. It fits into the whole picture. Now, of course, for Julian, she was very much working in a eschatological understanding of salvation, which didn't look at, God created the world, and then he created humanity, and humanity stuffed up. Then he tried to get the people of God to actually follow him. They stuffed up. Then eventually he has to send his son, and they kill him. And actually that sorts out the whole problem of justice and who's going to actually atone for all this rubbish that's gone before. And then you have the glorification of Christ in the resurrection. And then we realize what we were actually created for. That's really trite way of putting it. But what Julian and the medieval period, particularly Duns Scotus's theology, is doesn't start like that, but looks at the end point and sees the end point is that, is the glory of God in Jesus Christ, in which we see the fulfillment of humanity. And then if you do that, it's like going to the end of a novel, reading the last pages first. Then you can say, oh, well, I can see why to get to that point, sin has a place. Sin is fitting. And that comes out that whole medieval idea of felix culpa, or happy fault, because if we had. So for Julian, sin is not an action or a thing. Now, what that means for the moral world, for our moral lives, is a very interesting one. It's a very interesting one.
Thank you. I mean, that's very helpful. I just kind of wonder about the Black Death that was around her whole life, and if tragedy could be included in those dark spaces.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes, I think that's probably, I mean, how else can you in a world where, which is even more deeply religious. Well, our world is not religious, is it at all? But I mean that in a time when everything is understood through the prism of faith, how can you possibly understand the Black Death unless you go to that Old Testament feeling like, well, you're being punished. God is punishing you for your sins. But Julian is saying, really? Really? So how does that fit? How does it fit? Because obviously Black Death it's not sin, is it? It's a horrible, it's an inevitable kind of problem of our life. But also, if we don't know those aspects of our life, the dark times, we don't know the light, we don't know the compassion, we don't know the goodness and the mercy. That's an Irenaeus kind of thought that,
Thank you.
Hope that helps.
It does.
Yeah. But it's a very good question. It's a really good question. Yeah. So it's just before 8. If nobody else had anything, then I thought we might end with Julian. I said I'd end with Julian. And so I just want to read you those words. It comes from the 10th revelation, which we've been looking at tonight. Excuse me. It's last two paragraphs, so forgive me, it's a bit long. But I just think I'll let Julian's words speak to you. And with this sweet rejoicing, he revealed in part to my understanding the blessed Godhead, as far as he would at that time. Strengthening then the poor soul to understand, as far as it may be expressed, that is to say, the meaning of the endless love which was without beginning, and is, and always shall be. And with this, our good Lord said most blessedly, "Look how I loved you," as if he had said, "My darling, look and see your Lord, your God, who is your maker and your endless joy. My darling, look and see your own brother, your sovereign. My child, look and see your Lord God, your creator and your endless joy. See what delight and bliss I have in your salvation. And for my love, rejoice with me now." The last word should